Hi, I'm Peter Mueller of Advanced Technologies and Services. I'm the CTO here, and today we want to talk a little bit about the revenue assurance challenges of dealing with burstable circuit billing. First, by way of background, in the old days things were a little simpler because everything had a one-to-one correspondence, right? Whether you were making a phone call, making an SMS, or using a bit of data, what mattered most to the carrier was that they got one record in or one record out for every record in, and that went to the billing system, which of course generated for them the dollars. Now what's new now is in the current situation when we're using burstable billing, we're talking about much bigger pipes that have a different form of billing. In fact, they do the 95/5 billing, which we'll talk about a little bit in a second. And what we're doing with the stamper box is we're generating our own activity against the same network. So we deploy these stamper boxes that ATS produces out in the field, and they work in tandem with our scheduler, and the scheduler sends jobs at regular intervals to test points all over the world. In fact, we're testing the various cloud providers and Azure, as well as the other stamper points in what we call the national test network. So our customers are able to ping each other with these different boxes and produce actual usage that emulates this traffic over here. In terms of what we find, we'll take a look at that next. So with our stamper boxes deployed in the field, emulating your customers, generating the same kinds of traffic, except we have a known test case being generated by our scheduler, we can then look at the output. And the output looks like this. Every 95/5 billing works with time divided into 5-minute intervals and the actual speeds that are recorded at various 5-minute intervals. And whereas a customer would traditionally have a baseline that they would bump up against now and then, a burstable customer can go well in excess of that. That's the point of burstable billing. And then what remains for the carrier to do is to figure out what the top 5% of points are and forgive those. That's typically how 95/5 billing goes. So you say, well, what can go wrong? I look at the 5% points, the top 5%, forgive them all, and then my point that's left becomes my 95th percentile point. Well, that's all well and good, except our stamper tests tell us again and again that we might generate more traffic than's actually recorded. And so if our points are consistently higher, you can imagine what this does to the 95th percentile. We would forgive higher points, and the ATS calculation might land up at a higher number for P95. That can mean dollars to the bottom line. The other thing we see again and again is missing time slots. If your mediation platform is not polling things regularly at 5-minute intervals, then what will happen is you'll forgive the wrong set of points. Now you might say, well, what does it matter if I miss this data point? It's a low one anyway. What if I miss this one? It's a low point anyway. But if you're missing these higher ones here, it has a huge impact on the bottom line. If you happen to miss a few of these points, then what happens, of course, is that the points that get forgiven are the ones that you did record, but then you dig deeper into the lower ones, bypassing the ones you did not record. And then what ends up happening is your calculated P95 point becomes much lower. And what we know categorically is that the difference between what should be and what often is can be thousands of dollars per circuit per month. Now the question of how we can actually calculate this across the board, we'll look at in just a second. So in order to truly understand the impact of these kinds of problems that are being generated and identified on your network, we need to not only pull in the stamper test activity, which we are generating on the traffic, but we need the entirety of the traffic coming from your billing system. And that leads to a lot of data, and we'll talk about that in another video. And it also leads to the opportunity to set up controls to make sure that your billing is happening correctly and that all the dollars are falling to the bottom line. If you have any questions about this, I encourage you to ask us. We're here to help, and we'll be looking at this other issue in a little more detail in another video. Thanks for watching.